Hello, everybody. It is time for our Friday night chill Q&A hangout. If you would like to grow as an artist and you can't take an art class, we've got everything you need your Art Prof critiques, tutorials, professional development, and workshops. Tell me in the chat, how has your artistic week gone so far? Any projects you are working on? Any new art supplies that you have tried out? I had the opportunity to try out those interference paints by Golden in a recent live stream. And I had a lot of fun doing shiny things that I would typically never do in my own practice. I like the idea of metallic and glittery, shiny things, but it's not really something I've been able to work into my practice. With the exception of some of the Moulin Rouge illustrations, because it's literally in the show. But for my own personal practice, have not found a reason to do that just yet. But I did make some time for a sea turtle who I got to meet at Poipu Beach in Kauai. It's a small island. The island with Honolulu is called Oahu, so I was able to go to both during the Hawaii trip. And so some of you may have seen, I did release this 8-minute video today. And this is where the painting was when I left the beach. Here he is. He didn't move at all. I think I remember he flipped his fin slightly, and that was sort of it. He was just sitting there for multiple hours at a time. And you can see here, these are some of the touch-ups that I did when I got home, because as you can see, there are these highlights here on the back up here at the top. And these were not here earlier. So if you look at this drawing, you can see this top of the shell is a lot darker. And so when I got back home, I came back with white colored pencils and yellow. And you can see I didn't just stick it up here at the top. That's the main thing, is oftentimes people want to fix something, but if you just do that one spot with that new color that you're introducing, then it sticks out too much. So what you'll notice if you look at the drawing is that the colored pencil is on the top, but it's also down here at the bottom. I added quite a few strokes all over the shell. So that's the key to making those changes, is to make sure whatever the new material is or color that you're introducing, that you distribute it throughout the composition. Lisa, how did you clean out sand from your gear? I ran it under the sink for a long time and it still has sand in it. I don't think I'm ever going to get it out permanently. So PSA for all artists out there, never bring your palette to the beach, because there will be sand in there for the rest of your life. Because I got back from Hawaii, I got that extra pump to take more time to spend on Clara's art adventures. Although, here's the funny thing, and I'd love to hear your feedback on this. So I created this separate YouTube channel because I wanted a place that would consolidate all of the travel content, because you guys have probably noticed we have, oh my gosh, last time I looked, I think we have 1,800 videos on the channel. And that doesn't even count the hundreds that I've unlisted because they were so cringy and awful. For that reason, I always thought of art adventures as a separate thing from Art Prof. But it seems like since I've been going to all these places and meeting up with staff, I sort of feel like Art Prof is turning into Clara's art adventures. And so I'm thinking, wow, maybe this isn't separate. Maybe it was dumb to make another channel. I'm not going to get rid of it because I do like the idea still of having it in one place. But I think Art Prof is slowly turning into that. But again, it's a matter of budget, whether we can actually sustain it, because, oh boy, travel's expensive. I really wish it didn't cost quite so much, because And tell me in the chat, what do you think about this? I think going somewhere, speaking to people, going to museums and seeing work out in the wild, I feel like that is one of the greatest lessons you can have as an artist. I mean, certainly we like our studio practice, but I always come back from those trips absolutely pumped with ideas. And so we obviously don't have the budget to turn into a travel art channel, but somewhere down the line, I've got plans. I always have plans. Neil's been painting a bunch of cityscapes, Quentin personal anime type of series. And oh, Susan lives near the beach here in the South. Sea turtles are a big thing. Oh my gosh, maybe I need to come paint those sea turtles. Because that seriously was one of the most amazing plein air experiences that I've ever had. I've gotten to paint some really incredible landscapes, but I've never gotten to do something like this. And same thing with the Hawaiian monk seal. I feel like the experience was more exciting than the painting. So for me, it's more about that. I mean, I think the turtle painting turned out better than the Hawaiian monk seal. The Hawaiian monk seal, there was like nothing to paint. It was just really flat, but it's still the experience that is going to stay with me forever. Sea control. It's true about the sand in the palette. I can vouch for that. Yes, never do that. And also, if you go to the beach, bring a towel. I didn't bring a towel either. Also, yes, Lisa, hit the nail on the head. Art Prof is becoming art, travel, and education. The number of people that we've been able to speak to when we travel is tremendous. And you guys haven't even seen what Lauren shot when she was traveling in Italy. And Kat was in Japan last month to teach a RISD class. And so there's going to be content coming from all of those sides. I mean, what I'd like to do is beef it up so we can do it more often, because I'm learning. I mean, from a selfish point of view, when I get to go to a museum, you can't go to an art museum and not learn something. And I love sharing that with all of you. I just need a big pile of cash to pay for all the travel expenses. They're not cheap. I mean, lately I've been trying to go to places where I have somebody to stay with, because that's obviously a huge difference. Oh, you want to see the dog? Oh, he's very flat right now. He's on the floor. Maybe he'll come back later. I thought he was going to leave, but we'll see. Starving Artists Art Project, racking up my Amazon cart with art goodies the last 2 days. Does that count? Of course. You can't make art if you don't have supplies, right? Got to have those supplies or the artwork is never going to happen. Now, remember, everybody, these Hangouts are really fun because it's an opportunity for you to pick my brain. So get your questions into the chat about anything you want to know about being an artist. I look extra crisp today. I think it's because I finally got my light to work again, and maybe it's making my webcam very happy. Who knows? Yes, and you know what's extra cool about Lauren being in Italy is that she was there with her dad. And so we actually have a couple reels of her and her dad talking about art in Rome. It's so cute. Some of you may have seen, we have a interview with Lauren's dad, who is a mail artist, M-A-I-L, and he's so cool. So I can't wait for all of you to see that. Paula says, I love seeing the art from your trips. Well, guess what? I've been getting busy because you guys, this is the thing. If I get an idea in my head, I can't let it go. So I'm trying to scheme, okay, what are some ways that I could get to these places without paying for everything out of my pocket? So of course, we all know there's a whole world of influencers everywhere. And I've been checking it out, and apparently there are places like hotels and sometimes airlines and apparently tourism boards for specific cities and countries are great ways to get yourself to another place. We already have the content, we already have the media kit, so I'm not worried about that part. I just have to package it, put it all together on the website. We're probably going to have an area for all of the adventures, but I'm really, really hoping that I can make a push for that, because some of you may have heard in the past all of my woes trying to get sponsors. And I realize we're barking up the wrong tree, because for so long, I kept thinking that, oh, we're an art channel, therefore art supply companies, art stores, those are the type of people who would be really good sponsorships. But guess what? They're not interested at all. And the big, big companies just led me on. They were like really crummy dates who just ghosted me and then said, I love you, you're awesome, come back. And then it was a bunch of crap. So I'm done trying to deal with the art supply companies and all that. And so I'm looking now at researching tourism boards, because there are a lot of countries that really want tourists. I know there's a lot of countries that don't want tourists, who are overcrowded. And I just thought maybe that's something I could try to do. I know a lot of hotels will sponsor people, but of course it's a lot of homework that I have to do now. But I am going to make a push for that, because to me, that's where the most exciting content is, getting to meet all these people. I went to the Getty Museum. I got to speak to a curator, and actually I do have a trip in August, and I did land another interview with a major museum curator. It's not 100% confirmed. It could still not work out, but they were excited, and I felt very bona fide after that conversation. Susan is asking, how much do you do chalk pastels? Oh, do you do much chalk pastels? I've been venturing into that realm lately. I was never that into them that much. I did a little bit in college, but the reason I started getting into chalk pastels again was because of all of you, because all of you were asking me about how to use chalk pastels. And so actually this is one of the early soft pastel drawings that I did. It's a bread fairy drawing. And I remember thinking, oh, I haven't done this in literally decades. And I got really into it. And since then, I've done quite a few bread fairy pieces that are soft pastel that I've been very excited about. And we do have a soft pastel area on the website, or you can just type soft pastel into the search bar on our website. And that's another good way to see all of our content. Or, of course, go to YouTube and just type in Art Prof soft pastel, and that's a pretty good way to find our stuff. Because if you have not visited artprof.org, everybody, I highly recommend it. There's so much stuff that's not on YouTube. Also, I sort of slave over the pages. I'm like working on these website pages. I'm like, is anybody reading this? So it'll make me feel very good if you all go to our website. 7A says, getting to see museums via the Art Prof lens is great because it's highly unlikely for me to see them in person. So at least I get a peek this way. Yes, I mean, who could possibly get to see all those museums? I know there's some people who've talked to me who said, listen, I can't even go to my local art museum because I have, let's say, a chronic illness, or I have a disability or something that makes it possible, or have anxiety. There are all kinds of reasons why somebody would not be able to visit even a local art museum. And so I'm hoping that we can give all of you that type of experience. Lisa says, I taught a little class yesterday. Students really focused on matching the reference. How do you encourage students to deviate from the reference? It's hard. Tell us in the chat, how many of you here, when you have worked with reference photos, do you feel that you owe your reference photo to make your painting look just like it? Because I think most artists have that pressure. But one of the effective ways to do it is I'll actually tell people to go into the image in your phone in Photoshop and just bump up the colors so they just look totally over the top, like majorly increase the saturation. And then because the photograph has been altered, then you're not really trying to do the original photo. So that's a good thing too. The other way that I encourage people to do that would be to use more than one reference. Because if you just have one photo and that's all you're looking at, chances are that's probably what you're going to end up doing. But if you say, okay, we have two photos, I'm going to add this part and I'm going to add that part, then it's impossible for you to go so close to the reference. Urin says, for your work that helps me, here is a gesture of thanks. Well, thank you so much. We so much appreciate your support. Keep those super chats coming, everybody, because they are absolutely critical to the work that we are able to do here. I'm very proud that we have never had a paywall for our content. And wow, it's almost been, next year is our 10-year anniversary. 10 years we've been able to sustain ourselves with a lot of stress involved with no paywall. But I'm very, very proud of that, even though it drives me crazy at the same time. Also, Biblioholic, Google virtual museum tours for some options to visit a museum virtually. Well, I have a bunch of museums that are on my bucket list, and one of them is definitely the Kathy Kollwitz Museum. Oh, want to go there so bad. And yes, I know there's a Kathy Kollwitz show at MoMA right now. And guess what? It opened 2 weeks after I was there. I was like, the universe hates me. Then again, the universe gave me Aaron Tveit, so I can't be mad about anything. Quinton says, what interesting artwork could you do on, shall we say, index cards, cardboard, or other material? For stuff like that, I really enjoy creating sculptures. Cardboard is really fantastic for making sculptures because, number one, it's really inexpensive. So you don't have to worry, and most of the time it's free. You can just get stuff off the street. It's really nice because sometimes when you have really nice, let's say, clay and it costs a fortune, it makes you a little more precious with it. But when you know it's something like cardboard, which is very easy to get a hold of, it just frees you up as an artist. Who here has that experience? Do you ever find you have this like super cheap material like cardboard and they're, oh, I can do whatever I want. If I mess up, it's not a big deal. But then sometimes I have really nice paper. I'm like, I can't use it. It's too beautiful for me to do anything on top of that. Also, Seawing says, once I walked away for a class I paid for because the guy made us paint one artichoke laying on a folded sheet for 2 hours the first night. Oh, yeah, that's not very exciting. I don't feel like I would want to do that. You know what's interesting too is I'm always doing our workshops, obviously, and I absolutely love leading them and talking to people. And you know something, I didn't realize how not hands-on a lot of online workshops are, because a couple of weeks ago I treated myself to an online workshop. And I was like very excited because when you're usually the one leading the workshop, it's so fun to just be the student for a little while. And I couldn't believe that they had a slideshow. They said, we're not going to share the slideshow. And they didn't record the workshop. I'm like, isn't that the whole point of it being online? Is that it's accessible and you get a record? I was like, wow. And they charged way more than we charge for our workshops. And then the other thing that I thought was frustrating is, you know how at a workshop there'll be oftentimes like a Q&A type of thing. I don't do that for our studio workshops, but I have done it when we've done professional development workshops like selling your art or something like that. And so we're all typing these questions into the chat. And I didn't know they were going to do this, but the moderator was only having him answer a couple questions. I was like, did we come to the workshop to ask questions and have them be answered. And so I was very lucky that a lot of people who were taking the workshop did have a lot of expertise. And that was awesome because they all replied to a bunch of my questions and I came away with a lot of great information. But I was like, I took the workshop so I could hear from that person. And the fact that they just skipped half the questions and they totally had time for it. I was like, how can you do that? So I have to say, after that, I was feeling very, very confident in the quality of our workshops. Like, I just couldn't believe how little we got considering what we paid. Anyway, I think it was a very interesting experience because I run all of these online programs and yet I don't get to do them myself. So I feel like I don't have very good perspective in regards to what's out there, formats of workshops. I was like, dude, at the very least, just record it, okay? The other stuff, fine, whatever. But just, can you please record the workshop? I don't know why that was so difficult. Ha! It was an ugly artichoke. Well, maybe he should have gotten an artichoke that was more aesthetically pleasing. Maybe that would have made the experience a little bit less annoying. Because guess what, you guys? I try really hard to answer all the questions. The times that I would skip over one would be if it's inappropriate or if it's something that is rude or something like that. But to me, all the questions are legit. So I'm always happy to go through the questions, or sometimes, of course, we run out of time. Brandon says, currently having trouble with motivation. Have any advice for staying motivated without feeling discouraged with your slow progress? I would recommend trying not to judge yourself and trying not to look for progress, because progress is not that visible most of the time. And I know we want it. We sort of rely on seeing progress to stay motivated, but it can't be the only thing that keeps you going. And one of the reasons why is because you just can't have an unrealistic expectation for yourself that you're always going to keep improving. I mean, I've done things where I didn't see improvement for so long. Who here has learned something, whatever, maybe it's woodworking, maybe it's learning golf, whatever you have learned in the past, and felt at some point, oh my God, I'm never going to learn this. Or, oh my gosh, I'm so bad. This is not going to improve and I'm not improving fast enough. Because I think if you're constantly searching for progress and expectations, that's usually the thing that really gets people down. So if you have really high expectations, like if you take a skating class and let's say you took 4 skating classes, figure skating, and you were not able to do jumps, of course you're going to be frustrated. So I think part of it, Brandon, is learning how to manage your expectations, because that oftentimes has more to do with it than your actual artwork. Now, I'm not looking at your artwork, so I can't really give you a very accurate answer to that, but a lot of the times that is the case. And DeVerne says, want to make hyper-realistic paintings with fantastical goddesses so I can get this thing, although I have blank canvas syndrome now. Okay, so DeVerne, if you would like to frame that into a question, I'd be happy to take a look at that later. All right, some really good thoughts about references. Eternal Sun says, I don't like how overly focused I can get with reference details. It drives me wild and makes the process draining to me. I find details draining. That's why I don't do them most of the time. They're not fun for me. And I do find that you don't need that much detail. I think sometimes because the photo has detail, we think we have to do it too. But I found most of the time, if I just draw 20% of the detail that's there, it's usually enough. And that's the thing, is we think we have to do everything, but we really don't. We can be a lot more selective about what we choose to portray. Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to say. I'll get in trouble. But anyway, I mean, the workshop was fantastic. Like the lecture part of it was really, really good. I just felt like the supplementary parts of the workshop not being recorded, that type of thing, I found a little bit frustrating. You're in SUNY. Why are so many artists reluctant to work with good material? Why does cheap paper give one a sense of freedom? Well, I think as artists, we worry that we're going to mess something up. And oh gosh, my opportunity to do something wonderful with that beautiful piece of paper, it's gone. And I just flushed $25 down the toilet. Whereas if you do something with chipboard and you mess up, it's not a big deal to get another piece. I suspect that's the reason, but maybe there are other people in the chat who have other reasons for that. Okay, so JR says, tips for figure drawing. I find my figures are often disproportionate. One of the ways to think about proportion is to consider how big is, let's say, an arm to the width of the hips. That's the key way to learn proportions in a figure, is you have to make comparisons. So for example, if I'm standing here, okay, and my shoulder is like this, I always tell people, okay, there's two shoulders, which one is higher? Okay, if I do my hands like this, and then maybe one hand is like this, I will say, okay, which hand is wider? It's going to be this one, because you're seeing more of the side. And so that's what I find with proportions, is people are very reliant on these measuring systems. But the thing is, if you're doing a measuring system, you're not really looking. You're just plugging in numbers. And so if you want to really understand proportions, you have to compare things. So it's the same thing. Like if I have these two brushes, I can say, okay, well, which one's taller? It's this one, as opposed to just saying, oh, this is supposed to be 2/3 of an eighth, whatever that means. But that's the main thing people don't do. Like if I look at you guys straight on, my face is symmetrical. But if I turn this way, this part of my face is going to be wider than this part. And so you can say, okay, this is wider than this. And that's how you see those proportions. It's complicated. Figure drawing is huge amount of work. And we were talking earlier about progress, and it is slow to find all of those places. Good tip from Courtney, take time to look back at your prior work. That can be inspiring. Yeah, you're making progress. If you are working and making art, you're making progress. I know that feels like, oh, but hang on, the drawing I did last week was better. I'm not making progress. You can't make art and not progress in some way. Maybe you're not progressing in the way you would like to, but that's okay. I don't know anybody who progresses the way that they want to. It's just not possible. Okay, so Raphael says, I usually freeze before I start painting, sure to the amount of stuff I have to prepare before starting painting, and I'm going to start with oil painting. Any advice in this regard? Love your channel. Thank you. Are you saying, Raphael, that you've never painted before? Or are you talking about when you sit down to start a painting? Because you're saying here, I want to start with oil painting, and it sounds like you've never done oil painting before. So if you can answer some of those questions, Raphael, I can reply later in the stream when I've heard from you. I'm sorry, I'm such a nerd. Like anytime any of you asks me a question about anything, I'm going to reply with 3 questions because I need to know the specifics of the situation. I mean, there's a limit to that because we're here on a live stream, but that is really important for me to be able to contextualize your question to understand and answer it better. Also, Lisa says progress isn't always visible or noticed. It goes up, down, and sideways. Roller coaster. Then a month later, you notice, hey, I'm more comfortable, or this seems easier. So you were experiencing invisible progress. I think most progress is invisible. And a lot of this, it's just time. I mean, think about those athletes. I mean, we're about to go into the Summer Olympics. And oh my gosh, if you're a diver, how many times you're going to do terrible dives? And then when are you going to finally get a good one? I mean, chances are you're doing a lot of bad dives, and most of the time you are not hitting it. And that is extremely similar to what it's like being an artist. Blue is asking, when is the next art along and what medium? Will we get one if we get you new supplies? You will. If you get me a supply, so some of you may know that if you send me art supplies, I do have an Amazon wish list. And if you look in the video description below, it says art supply reactions. So our wish lists are on there. But if there's something you want to send me, you can just tell me, message me somewhere on social media, whatever, and tell me what supply you want to send me, and I can add it to the wish list. But the next one is going to be that kneadable graphite putty. And I also have flash paint. I'm so excited. Okay, so we have two more. Oh, wait a second. I think Buddy wants to go out. Sorry, you guys. There he is. He really wants to go out. Okay, give me 1 second. Sorry. He's giving you guys a little concert right now. Right, Bud? Hopefully that's enough of a dance. Okay, honey. Okay. Hang on. I'll be right back, everybody. It'll just take me 1 minute. Okay, Bud. Come on. Come on. There you go. All right, I'm back. Ugh. Okay, yeah, so next art along is going to be the kneadable graphite putty and also flash paint. But I don't have anything beyond that. So if anybody wants to suggest something and send me art supplies, I'm always happy to take a look. Jojo's asking, can you paint an AP drawing? I actually don't know very much about the AP art exam, so I'm sorry I can't give you an answer. That probably would be something to ask your teacher at school. Where is Hugh Jackman today? Oh my God, you guys, there's so much Hugh Jackman content right now because Deadpool and Wolverine is coming out, and it's like every day there's all this new Wolverine content. It's just like making my head explode. And yes, I am going to see that in the movie theater. Although I don't know about anatomy because he has that really big yellow suit this time. I mean, maybe there's some shirtless shots that I don't know about in the movie. We'll see. But yes, I'm just a little excited about that. There's so many good photos. Oh my God. Neil says, any tips on making art faster? To be fair, the stuff I'm making now is more complicated than before, and I'm using digital, which is already faster than traditional, but I still feel like I'm slow. So my question for you, Neil, is why do you want to draw faster? Are you worried about time? Are you feeling like if you drew faster, your work would be better? Because I can tell you guys, anytime anybody says to me, how can I do blank faster? I usually say, in the context of art, you don't. You just don't. I mean, yeah, if you're a runner, obviously running faster is a better thing. But if you're an artist, unless you're on a professional deadline that you cannot screw with, dig into the luxury of not having that. I wish I could do that, just take my time forever. But I know that I would just never make anything if that were the case. But I just think this whole, I want to get better faster, I want to make art faster, I want to learn faster. Like, I just think, I'm sorry to tell you, I just think it doesn't work. You just have to learn at the pace you learn. In fact, sometimes you try to learn something faster, you find you really didn't learn it, then you got to go back, and that's actually not very efficient, in my opinion. It's better to just learn it for real the first time. Yeah, like Nancy says, practice makes progress. It's that simple. I mean, would we say to a classical pianist, why aren't you learning faster? I mean, we'd probably be told, hey, you got to practice more. That's usually most of the problem. A lot of musicians, when they're young and they're starting, the issue is not them. It's that they're not practicing enough. And it's really that straightforward in a lot of situations. yes, like Priscilla says, when things are hard and then one day some things become easier without realizing it. It's like all of a sudden, I can do it now. It's usually like that. It's not a moment where it's like, boom, I see progress. It's just you start realizing all of a sudden, because you've been doing it so much, that the thing that was very hard 4 months ago doesn't feel so hard all of the sudden. Tolly says, what can you do if your art space is taken? How can you make art with limited space? Yeah, that's really frustrating. I'm sorry to hear if that's happening to you, Tally. But I can tell you, actually, this is a really funny picture of Jordan that he sent me. He gave me permission to post this, but he said he was traveling this week, but still has to work. And so I asked him about his setup, and apparently he has 2 laptops and an iPad. And I actually have found that when I'm traveling, I actually stopped bringing my laptop, and I do literally everything production wise here for Art Prof. It's on my phone. And at first I was like, that's a little risky. I don't know if I want to do that. But I have found a workflow that works. And it took me a little while, but I do think that's worth it to figure out, okay, what is my workflow? What is my equipment if I'm traveling or if my art space is not available anymore? I do think that's a thing that's worth considering. But listen, even if your art space is taken and all you have is a sketchbook, I think that's enough. Depends on the person, obviously, but I do think that it is possible. Yes, Pagarami. I'm glad you guys were so entertained by Buddy. He's usually a little bit loud, which is why I typically don't let him hang out in the office, but he was pretty content today. So Jag is asking, how's your experience with Kara? Any comparisons or insights from Instagram? Yeah, it's interesting. So there was that one weekend, little ways back, where Meta made the announcement about AI and them scraping everything on Instagram. And everybody was sort of panicking that weekend, and I was seeing a lot of posts about it. And then there's the whole Kara explosion, which I think for them was very stressful because they were not anticipating that many people to sign up all at once. But you know something, and this is my experience, I don't know what other people are seeing. After about a week of that, it just sort of died down. I mean, I'm not looking for that content, so maybe I'm just not aware of what's actually going on. But a lot of the artists that I've talked to have this sort of, well, it's been scraped, and if it's anywhere online, it's going to be scraped. And so why does it matter? And so I asked a couple of my artist friends, I said, well, did you do anything in reaction to that? I know some people were like, I wiped it clean, I'm gone from Instagram. Some people were like, oh, I'm going to keep it, but I'm not going to post anymore. So there were a huge range of different reactions. I'm not changing anything because, to be honest, we've spent years building this, and I know the companies are relying on us saying that, and I don't like it. Morally, I think it's awful, but I'm not going to throw away this audience that we spent so long building. But anyway, Kara, I have found, we initially got a bunch of followers. It sort of died down because I haven't been promoting it very much. But Mia has told me that what she's seeing on Kara is that it is more for digital artists so far. I mean, it's so early. I don't think we can make any judgments about what Kara is at this point because there's not enough people on it. But she said right now it's mostly digital artists, but it just takes time. I mean, no platform just becomes the thing it's going to be. But it sounds like it's more like ArtStation used to be. Well, still is. I know ArtStation also had a big exodus at some point, but yeah, we're still posting, but I'm not being super aggressive about it just because we get a lot of likes, but I'm not getting a lot of comments or interaction on there. And so, I mean, it's silly, but it makes me not want to post as much. Also, okay, so Raphael is following up about the painting question. I do acrylics, but start painting takes this energy to set up my paintings. I've been reading and watching lots of oil lessons. It's overwhelming since the care and preparation is so long. I wouldn't do it then. Honestly, oils are such a pain in the butt. I mean, if you already do acrylics, I would say stick with acrylics and increase your skill set there first, because oils are like 3 times the amount of work. I mean, we were talking earlier about things taking so long to do and slow progress. Oil is honestly the worst one out of everything. I mean, there's other things that are absurdly more difficult, like carving marble, but I don't think a lot of people realize how slow it is to become a fairly decent oil painter. So I think if you're watching the lessons, Raphael, and you're feeling overwhelmed, don't do it, because it's just not really worth the hassle. I'm not saying that people shouldn't oil paint, because oil painting is incredible and it's a wonderful experience. But number one, it's very expensive. For example, if you don't have any of the supplies, you have to get all these new supplies. It takes a really long time to feel remotely competent. And so that's just something I warn people about, because the thing about oils is it's not really the type of thing you can just pick up and do in a day. Like if I gave somebody a bunch of soft pastels, that would be fine. I could be, oh, here's a big bunch of soft pastels, go at it. That would be no problem. But you can't really do that with oils. It's too difficult to make that happen. So I would recommend, Raphael, do the acrylics and just really try to improve your skill set there, because it's going to be faster. I mean, we're all just talking about things being faster, but it's like, it's better to hone your skill in a material that isn't so complicated and expensive, because then all your time is spent doing that, figuring out the mediums and the cleaning and the disposal, and then you're not really painting so much anymore. So of course, do it at some point, but I would say if even watching the videos is making you feel overwhelmed, is probably not the best time to start learning them. Yes, Gmo the axolotl is still alive. Yeah, he's doing great. He eats a worm, I think, every 3 days, and he got very big and pink because one of my kids did a really great job of feeding him, and so he used to have these pink gills, and now they're like bright magenta. It's really, really cute. Yes, Jen, I know. They're on my list. They really, really are. Because Magda, oh my gosh, so amazing, got me that life-size skeleton, and I have plans. It just was so crazy because I was in LA and then I went to Hawaii, and now I'm finally starting to not feel nuts. So yes, we definitely have to do an update, because those anatomy videos are from like 2020. I can't believe how long ago that was. Oh, I'm so glad for telling me, Shorty Angel. Is that the one when he was in Japan? I can't remember. I think he dances. Also, when is the next hot white guy painting project? It's probably going to be Aaron Tveit, because he is coming back to the Moulin Rouge. And I totally was in this mindset of, oh, okay, the Moulin Rouge thing's kind of done. I'm going to do all these other things. But since he's coming back and I have to go see him in the fall, there's definitely going to be something there. Although maybe after I see Deadpool and Wolverine, I'll change my mind and want to do some artwork for that. I've actually never done bona fide Wolverine work, right? Have I? Yeah, I don't think I have like a full out painting. I'm not talking about sketches. Might be time. Yeah, so Slate is confirming about oils. It's so slow. It's annoying at times, but it is what it is. Yeah, and if you've got the time and money and all that patience, oil is great. But I just think people oftentimes think about painting as something you can just pick up, because it is the case for a lot of paints. Like wash, just pick it up. But oils is not really like that. He's not new. He's Aaron Tveit. I've been into him for a very long time now. I think it's about a year. I don't know. Hugh Jackman goes way back, though. Hugh Jackman goes to like 2002 when he was in X-Men. J.R. Grimm, good tip. Best tip I heard for getting faster is simply put down less. If drawing, draw less while only keeping everything important, then refining it later. Yeah, so that's another way to think about it. I think that's, for me, I consider that to be more making yourself a more efficient draftsperson. So instead of doing a million dots to articulate something, you learn how to do, let's say, 2 strokes instead. And that's a skill. That's not really about making something faster necessarily. I mean, it can be, obviously, but I think I used to do that too, where I would just put a million little things and hope it was fine. And now that I'm more confident and impatient, I don't do that so much anymore. Okay, Jazz is asking, why do eyes in paintings freak people out? Should I put sunglasses on the people I paint? I don't think so. It really depends on the painting. But I will tell you that a portrait, people engage with a portrait very differently than a plate of cookies. Like a plate of cookies does not generally stare you down. But I actually was in a show once, and I think some of the pieces were hung in near an office space. It was sort of like a building that had this gallery in the middle of where a lot of people worked. And we did have a couple of people complain that the portraits were freaking them out. And I'm sure it's because they were portraits. If they were portraits of beavers, I don't think anybody would have said anything. But again, it depends on the context. So if you want to make paintings of people with eyes, do it. Don't make other people determine what you can and cannot paint. We also have Anna asking, how do you know if Clara is right for you? It seems like it's more oriented towards character design. Any fine artists on there? Well, we are on there. Although, you know, something that I found slightly frustrating is that you can't have more than one account. And so because I signed up with my email, I can't have my own account separate from Art Prof unless I'm like logging in and logging out. And I found that sort of frustrating because on Instagram, I have multiple accounts for various things that I do. So that's one thing that I think was sort of frustrating. Yes, it's more digital artist right now, but you don't know what it could become. And also, if fine artists don't ever join, then yeah. So it takes some time because I think enough people have to hop on to convince the other fine artists to hop on. But if there's anything I've learned about these social media platforms is you have to be an early adapter, because I know that was the case with TikTok, that for a little while wasn't really a thing. And then the people who had been there from the beginning when it blew up are in pretty good shape, which is why I was telling people, listen, even if you don't know what to think of Clara, just go get a username. That's pretty important with new platforms. Love how you guys are supporting each other. Oh yeah, here's another thing, Raphael. Anna's pointing out, you do need a dedicated studio with good ventilation. Shouldn't oil paint in your bedroom or kitchen. That's why I don't oil paint. I mean, this is my studio space. I've got kids. I don't want to have stuff like that lying around. So it sometimes does depend on your personal situation. Thank you so much, Anna, for the super chat, who says, loved your weird tree videos from Hawaii. Well, I'm so glad to hear that, because I had so much fun painting all of those odd pieces of nature. This is not a tree drawing, obviously, but it's one of my cactus pieces. And I did get to visit this bonkers tree called a cannonball tree. If you want to find it, just look up Art Prof Cannonball on YouTube and you'll get to see that. Okay, shoot, this is not helping you guys. I told a couple people in the Discord, you know, I probably shouldn't tell you guys, but basically, peer pressure works. Lauren has totally figured me out, because she's had stuff that she's been bothering me about for a while. Like, I want to do this, we want to do this, whatever. And I'm always like, no, we don't have money. And she's discovered that if she bothers me long enough, usually over the span of several years, I will cave. X-Men comic art. No, I'm so bad at comics. I don't dare do a comic for that reason. I think that would be really, really cringy and bad. And not one of those it's so bad it's good situations. Dolly says, have you thought of doing artists on artists who are outside of the traditional art fields like stop motion animators or making resources? Sure. I mean, that's one of the reasons I really want to travel more is because there aren't any stop motion animators that live near me. I know a couple in Boston, actually. But yeah, I want to do all those things. I do want to take over the world. But as I was just telling you guys with Lauren, 99% of the reason why I say we can't do things is because we don't have the budget, because it's expensive. You know, if you're getting somebody to be on a stream, I mean, I can't ask people to do all those things for me for free. So unfortunately, that is the case. But you know where I really want to go is the Outsider Art Fair. Does anybody know about that fair? So I believe it's in New York City, and it's once a year, and it's a huge art fair, and all the work falls under the umbrella of outsider art. Now, I don't think I'm in a position to give a really accurate definition of what outsider art means, but I've never been there before, so I'm really hoping I can get the funds and the resources I need to go to something like that, because I think that would be amazing to see that much art in one place. Making Living Art says, what about water-soluble oil paint? It is an option, but I can tell you, and this is for Raphael as well, is it just doesn't compare. I feel like, I know technically, yes, it's oil paint and stuff, but to me, I feel like they should market it as something else, like make up some other name, because the second you put oil paint on there, you create all these expectations. And so when I tried water-soluble oils for the first time, a lot of people were asking me, oh, how does it compare to oils? And my answer was just, oh, it doesn't compare. It's not even close. And so I feel like if we looked at water mixable oils as just, oh, another type of paint, we wouldn't be so mad at it. Because for me, the whole time I was like, okay, I know it's water mixable oils, it's just not as good as oils. And so I just was like inherently disappointed with it the whole time. So they're a good option because they're water soluble. They're good for home studio. But for me, they just didn't hold a candle to oil paint. Although I'm curious if other people here felt differently. If you've tried them and thought, oh, these are pretty comparable, because that's my personal stance, but other people probably feel differently. Also, Shorty Angels asking, are oil paint fumes dangerous if you aren't using any mediums or turpentine? Technically speaking, let's say you just have oil paint, nothing else, no solvent, no medium, nothing. I think that's okay. Although the stuff like cadmiums, like you don't want to touch cadmium paint, get on your skin, like the heavy metals and stuff like that, you don't want to do. But I'm super paranoid. This is me. I know I'm probably more paranoid than the average artist, but I usually wear gloves when I paint because I just don't want anything on my skin. But it is in the solvents and the mediums. But the thing is, I can tell you I would never paint without solvents or mediums. I think there are some solvents which do not have odors technically. Somebody told me about, was it spike lavender oil? But the thing is, I've also talked to people who told me that it has a really strong odor. So it's not a solvent like turpentine, but some people told me it's like the odor is strong. So it's like it might as well be a solvent. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't recommend doing oils without solvents or mediums. Oh man, you guys are killing me. Oh my God, you guys are so bad. This is terrible. I should just keep my mouth shut. I shouldn't make any suggestions because then you guys are going to like talk me into it and then I'm going to feel guilty. And well, we all know how that goes. Seeker says, is it worth returning to university to finish my last 2 years of my animation BFA, financially supported by parents? I already have the portfolio, no personal finance, but I'm willing to work a day job. I think it's hard to answer because I don't know very much about your life situation and what you're aiming to do. My suggestion would be, if you can, and it's not a hardship, I would, because I think for a lot of us, we want that closure. It is helpful to have that degree. I'm not saying you have to have an animation degree, but it does help because then you become a network amongst the alumni at the school. Like, I've been in a lot of situations where I go to some job thing and then you find out that this person is RISD alum, and it's like, boom, you have an instant connection for that reason. So unless there's a reason why it's really going to be harmful for you financially or whatever, go for it. Oh my gosh, Slate, this is killing me. So when I contacted a bunch of people at the Getty when I was going to be there in May, a conservator replied to me like 2 weeks after I was there. And apparently they were like out of town or something. I'm like, oh my God, like this was a conservator who was like excited and wanted to talk to me. I'm like, no, so I have to go back. But that is not the only conservation program in the US. And I have learned I am getting better at worming my way into things. And a couple of people I have my eye on in my trip for August. So I'll see what I can do. I'm thrilled to do that. I mean, some of you may have seen the Hiromi paper shorts that I've been releasing. And the last short had something about the super like crazy thin paper that they use for books, because it's like you want to repair the book, but you don't want to like put a big thing of masking tape on top. But the other thing too, oh, this is so funny. When I had gotten back from Southern Graphics Council conference, Hiromi Paper said to me, oh, actually, we're going to be in Salt Lake City next week. There's the conservation conference. I'm like, what? It's a conservation conference and it's right here. And I didn't know about it. And of course, it cost like $500 and there wasn't enough time for me to do it. But that is on one of my lists, is to go to one of those conservationist conferences. Also, Mary says, Art Cider Art sounds just like me. Fantastic. I really want to go, hopefully. Oh, this is a good point from De Romilly. I feel the same about acrylic gouache. It's not remotely gouache. It's just matte acrylic. I like it, but it ain't gouache. Yeah, so I don't know. I feel like all these paint companies, they need to like get on board with some universal language, because yeah, there's some supplies where I'm like, really? You're calling it that? I don't think so. Mukan Dongri, has the skill of making your own paint gone out of style? I don't think so. I think it's just that you have to have a lot of expertise to do it. And also, if you want to make paint that is oils, it's extremely toxic. So you would have to have all the protection. You would have to have the expertise. I know stuff like egg tempera is a lot easier to do without all of those scary things, because it's an egg. That's all you're using. And there are certainly lots of places where you can make your own paint. Like, for example, Guerra Paint in Brooklyn, New York. They have a whole paint component system where you can make your own paint, and they are set up to do it in a non-toxic way. Everything is water soluble. So I don't think that it's gone out of style. I just think that it's so specialized that there just aren't a lot of people on the planet that have all that expertise. Janet says, how do you gain better visual sense in terms of aesthetics, colors, form for design? Every time I ask professors or mentors, they just say it just comes to them or it comes natural. Oh, I don't think that's true. I think it is a matter of deliberate study, taking the time to notice things like that. Ever since Dorian joined the staff, I've been thinking more about industrial design. And so actually, anytime I'm holding something of industrial design, I actually look at it differently. Like, let's say, for example, I look at, okay, these two pair of scissors. And you say, well, why is this one pink and white? Why is this one red? And some people might say, well, who cares what color your scissors are? And maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe the shape of this matters more. I mean, that's design. Somebody had to design the shape that's in those scissors. But the thing is, for some reason, I like the red one better. Actually, because red is my favorite color. I don't know, but these are like not that bold. I don't know. There's something about the white. Okay, so between these two pair of scissors, which one would you pick? The white and pink one or the red one? For some reason, the red one just looks better to me. So a lot of it is, say, looking at something and saying, oh, I really like that. And then saying, wait a minute, but why do I like it? That's the thing a lot of people don't do. They'll say, I like it, but they don't have a reason and they haven't broken down why they like it. So that's something you guys can do. Like every time I'm in the kitchen and somebody gives me a new spatula and I hate the spatula, oh, here's my most recent thing. So I bought applesauce last week and I just thought, oh, okay, this is good enough. By the time the applesauce bottle was almost done, you're like trying to scrape out the rest of the applesauce, the stupid bottle was like all ribbed on the inside. And so there was so much applesauce, I just could not get it out because of the stupid ribs that were inside the bottle. And so I remember that moment thinking, oh my gosh, that is bad industrial design. So I don't think it just comes to people. I think you have to ask yourself those questions. And the same thing goes with why you don't like something. Like you look at a piece of artwork, you say, I don't like that. And then you try to explain to yourself why you don't like it. So that's a good thing to do. And you don't have to do that just with artwork. Do that with anything. Okay. We also have... Okay, so thank you for confirming, OG. Spike lavender isn't toxic like terp or odorless mineral spirits, but it does smell really strongly. Yeah, so for me, it's like, it doesn't matter what the odor is. If there's an odor that's strong, I don't want to use it. Quinton's asking, have you done lino cuts? Those wood and you carve into them and press them stamps on paper. Oh, yes, I have. I've done a number of relief prints. Oh my gosh, who saw in the New York Times, I think it was yesterday, about this guy who was making wood blocks and they were frauds, of course, but he was like listing them as if they were from the 15th century. And then he met a collector who was really into antique medical items. And so this guy had like this museum that he created of antique medical items. And he collected the woodcutters' prints that were of old medical devices. But it became this whole thing that this guy was a total fraud and he was making up stories about these blocks he was making, claiming, and I think they said the antique collector spent something crazy like $400,000 towards this stuff. It was a really interesting article. I'm curious if anybody else read that, because I don't know, on one hand, I understand how you could be duped, but I'm like, really? I sort of think I could tell, because I don't know, the images, they didn't look that authentic to me. But then again, it's like if they're not going in front of experts, maybe that would be the reason why. I don't know. I'd have to see one in person to really give a true response. But I just sort of thought these don't really line up. Like, a lot of the visuals from those time periods. Tolly's asking, what do you think of the art industry shifting to independent artists? Do you think there will be an increase of indie creators in different art industries? Oh, I think it's already going there, because I've been talking to Jordan a lot about how the animation industry is absolutely collapsing. And it's a really big problem because all of these people are not being hired. I mean, veterans in animation are having trouble. And so I think there is a narrative, and I have it too, of I was in this industry, it sucked, I'm disillusioned, I'm going off and doing my own thing on YouTube. I think we're going to see a lot more of that. And you see a lot of people in tech leaving tech. They start a YouTube channel and have agency over the work that they're doing. I think while the internet has its problems, and of course YouTube does as well, I think that's extraordinary that people can do that. Janet says, what do you do if you don't know what to draw or if ideas don't come to you and you have a deadline? Can you tell me, Janet, what the deadline is? Because usually if I have a deadline, it's for something very particular. Like I don't usually have deadlines to paint whatever, but if you can explain that to me a little bit better, I can come back. We also have Juris, any advice on learning a different painting technique? I find it difficult since I'm used to realism. I really want to stray away from that into something very loose and experimentative with subjects. You could try totally switching up your brushes. So whatever brushes you typically use, get different ones. What I find is a lot of people who paint with realism tend to use a lot of small brushes. For example, what happens if you're a realist artist, and maybe Juris, you can tell me right now, what if Juris, I said to you, you got to paint with this? You cannot do realism with a paintbrush like this. No chance. And so sometimes if you change up the tools, there's no possibility of you reverting back to that. Or let's say, for example, one of my favorite things is to tell people, you know what? Paint with a palette knife. Don't use your brushes. Just see what happens with this. Changing your tools is a very easy way to do something concrete that you can't mess with. Oh, so George did see it. Okay, maybe the collector got so excited he wasn't looking at the prints critically. He didn't become suspicious until the A forger ghosted him. Yeah, apparently they had this very, very long, extended email exchange for a very long time, but then I guess he just cut it off entirely. I don't know. I mean, you read all these things about people being duped by art fraud things, and I don't know. I've never been in that situation, so I'm not sure, but I feel like I would want it to be looked at by somebody just to confirm, especially when it's like the person didn't have their real name on there, and I feel like that's not such a great sign. Tolly's asking, despite the internet risks, is it still worth it to be online as an artist who wants to go independent? It really depends on what you're willing to do. I mean, some people are very concerned, rightly so, about copyright, and we talked about Kara and AI scraping and everything. I think if you look at the options, okay, what if I want to make a living as an artist, but I don't want to use the internet? It's pretty hard. I mean, you would need to already be in the club for that to happen. And so I'm not saying you can't, but it would be very difficult and it'd be expensive, because if you're not putting stuff online, you're probably mailing things out. You're printing postcards to mail out. You have to pay for the mailings. And so you have to sort of like weigh what you're willing to do. Jade says, I went to an exhibition, was bitterly disappointed that I didn't enter anything. I was also angry at myself as I didn't think they'd be interested in my media of choice. I was so wrong. Well, I can tell you, Jade, that a lot of these shows, it's totally at the whim of the juror. And so I would just say anywhere you guys submit your work, don't make any assumptions about what they will like or won't like unless they're extremely specific. Like if you paint trains and they're like, oh, this show's for people who paint flowers, yeah, you probably shouldn't enter. But as far as stylistic things, I mean, you just never know. Okay, so Janet's clarifying by deadline, I just mean like when you know you need to make something. For me, it's typically for class, but you can also answer the question without the deadline part. Okay, I always pivot to nature Anytime I don't know what to draw, nature has never failed me. So something as simple as going outside, just picking a leaf. Leaves are beautiful if you look at them up close. Or another thing too that I have been told several times is draw what's right in front of you. For me, what's right in front of me, well, it depends on which way I go, but here's something that I am seeing on my desk right now. I see this. Okay, so some of you might say, oh, that's boring. I don't want to draw it. Actually, it's kind of cool because you have these textures, there's like diagonals, there's colors. And so sometimes there are these like random still lives that are around us, and we just have to notice it, which is why the art dare last month was really fun. That the art dare was to draw from life. And so we had a lot of people drawing things they ordinarily wouldn't have drawn. So it's really fun, I think, to do that. But nature to me never, ever fails. Okay, everybody, note that we do not have Discord chats after Friday night hangouts. And I'd like to give a big thank you to our top Patreon supporters. You are all critical to keeping us up and running, making sure we never have a paywall for our content. Visit artprof.org. We have tons of information on there that's not on YouTube. Whatever it is you're looking for, just type it into the search bar. I bet you anything you will see something. Art Prof has a podcast. It's available on Spotify and also on iTunes. And Gumby would like you to subscribe for more tutorials, critiques, and business tips. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.